What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Life of Dr. Curtis O. And in this segment, we're going to get into my top 10 things that are needed for residency to make your residency experience as smooth as possible, as fun as possible, as less challenging as possible. Before we get into that, I want to touch on something that I brought up in the previous video, and that is the giveaway, the Scrubs giveaway with MIM Scrubs. We hit the 1,000 benchmark in terms of subscribers, so we wanted to do a giveaway and give about 2 or 3 scrubs to 2 or 3 lucky subscribers. And the way you enter this contest is you have to tell us, 1, which specialty or which field you're going into in the medical field, and 2, what challenges you had to overcome or you're currently overcoming to get to where you need to be. So if you're interested in these scrubs, make sure you put those in the comments below, in this one and in the previous video where I talked about my residency experience. That way you have a chance to win those scrubs. Now, let's get into my top 10 things that you need for residency. And this is in no particular order, but these are my top 10 things that I felt that I benefited from, that I feel like others will benefit from. Number 1 on my list is something that I brought up in the previous videos. And some of these points that I'm bringing up now were in the previous video, but I feel like I should do it in a condensed version in this segment. So number 1 is be confident, not cocky. Confidence is everything in residency. Confidence is everything in life. And so in order for you to do well in residency, you have to have that confidence that what you're doing is working. What you're saying is true. Because again, at the end of the day, you are taking care of patients. Patients are putting all their trust in you. And so if you have that confidence in what you're doing and what you're saying, your patients are going to believe you. Now, on the other hand, you cannot be cocky. You try or do your best not to be cocky. Again, we're at this point where we're doctors and we want to feel like, we're on top of the world, but at the same time, you do not want to be cocky, because cocky will get you in trouble. So make sure that you walk that fine line. If you want to be cocky, make sure you know when you can be cocky, but do not do that all the time. Confidence is the number 1 key moving into residency and moving forward. Number 2 thing is learning the common conditions that you see in medicine, your bread and butter medicine. Diabetes, COPD, hypertension, congestive heart failure, MI, strokes, all those things. Those are huge in medicine. Again, everybody wants to be the guy that was able to diagnose this rare condition, one of these vascular conditions, whether it's Wegener's or whatever the case is. I know doctors that you want to be the one that said, yes, I diagnosed this rare condition, but at the end of the day, you have to know bread and butter medicine. You have to know those conditions that are prevalent in our country. If you know those things, then you can learn about all those other little things, because in residency, a lot of attendees are going to want to know if you know the basics to these conditions, and not knowing, what is the 2nd, 3rd, 4th line treatment for this condition or that condition. So make sure you know those common conditions, those common comorbidities that affect our country, because that is what you're going to see in the real life all the time, not these rare conditions that you see once in a blue moon. So know those things. My program director at our residency program made sure that we knew those things, because if you know those things, I promise you it's going to make your experience that much smoother when you go into residency. Number 3 on my top 10 is taking care of yourself. Residency is a marathon, not a sprint. Whether it's 3 years, 5 years plus fellowship, whatever the case is, you need to take care of yourself. A lot of people go into residency and all they want to do is study, and not do the things that they love. Whether it's traveling, whether it's reading books, whether it's working out, whether it's playing sports, you need to do those things that take care of yourself, because you need to decompress. It's not all about medicine. And depression and anxiety and all these other mental conditions are real. They are real, and they are a concern in the medical field. So doing things that take care of yourself to decompress your mind, so that you are ready to tackle whatever your attendings or program director or whoever in the residency program throws at you. You want to make sure that you're ready for that. And in order to do that, you need to take care of yourself first, because you are important. If you cannot take care of yourself, you cannot take care of others. So make sure you do that, because that will make your residency experience that much smoother. For me personally, it was playing sports, it was working out, and it was kicking it with family and friends. And I made sure that was a big priority for me, because if I did not do those things, that would have made my experience that much tougher, and I would have been extremely stressed out, and there's no telling how things could have went. Number 4 thing on my top 10 is do not lie. If you watched my previous video, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There was one time in my PGY 1 year in residency where I lied to my attending, if you did not watch the previous video. And that led to an embarrassment that I have rarely experienced in my lifetime. So if you're with your attending, program director, or whoever it is, it does not matter, colleagues, just in general, if you don't know, you don't know. And it's okay to say that. So, but to lie and say, you know, this was on the exam, or try to fib one of their, or try to make up something that they said in their H&P so that you can make sure that you have all the information for your attending, it's not good. So if you don't know, you don't know. Do not lie, do not be me. That's what you don't want to be, because for me personally, embarrassment was what I had to deal with, but things could be much worse if you lie. The number 5th thing in my top 10 is it's okay. It's okay to have bad days. It's okay where your days are not going the way you want it to. You're going to have days where you just, everything that you touch is wrong. Anything that you say is wrong. And it's okay. You're gonna have days like that in residency. Residency is not an easy experience. It's not an easy marathon. So you're gonna have days where it's just, things are just not going your way. When it rains, it pours. Everybody's heard that saying. So the thing that you need to realize is that you're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days. But it's what you do after those bad days is what's gonna make, is what's going to propel you to who you wanna be. Learn from your mistakes, learn from your challenges, but move on, because you're gonna have better days. Do not dwell on those days where they're extremely bad, because that can really affect your performance, and that's what you don't want your attendings to see. That's not what you want your patients to see. So brush it off, keep going, but it's okay. It's okay to have days. I've had days. Everybody's had days. No one in this world is perfect. So learn from it, move on, and you'll be just fine. The number 6 thing on my top 10 is learning 1 to 3 things each day if you can. In medical school, we study, but it's hard for us to apply it to the real world. It's hard for us to apply it when we actually see a patient. So when you are in residency and you are rounding with your attendings, you're seeing all these patients, and you're seeing, you know, your first case of COPD, your first case of CHF, or your first case of stroke, or your first case of cancer, whatever it is, whatever condition or whatever condition a patient may have that day that you're rounding on, go home and study that. Make sure that you learn that in and out, because that is the way that is going to stick in your head. Not seeing a patient with COPD or CHF and not going home to learn about it. That is where you're taking a loss. So make sure that whatever condition that you run across, you try to go home and review it and study it as best as you can, because that will make your studying that much easier when it comes to boards and things like that. So take 1, 2, or 3 different conditions that you might have learned that day at work in the hospital, inpatient setting, clinic setting, whatever it is, and make sure that when you go home that night, make sure you touch up on it. Even if it's just for a few minutes, that goes a long way. The number 7 thing on my top 10 is ask questions. When you're in residency, a lot of people get nervous or scared about asking your attendings questions, because when you do, you may think that you're asking a dumb question, or if you do, it's gonna look as if you're not smart enough. But your attendings want you to ask questions, and do know when you ask questions, your attending may know the answer to that, but what they're gonna say is, I don't know. Why don't you go home tonight, read up on it, research, and then present to the rest of the team the following day? And that is fine. It's okay to take your bumps and bruises. It's okay to ask questions, because you need to use this residency experience to make sure that you're ready for the real world. So ask questions. Do not be in the back of the team, not asking anything as if you know everything, because you do not. You do not. So ask the questions, but be prepared that you're going to do a presentation or whatever the case is, and that is okay. But ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. I cannot stress that enough. The number 8 thing on my top 10 is do not wait to study for your boards. Again, I touched this on the last segment, but I'm going to bring it up again. Do not wait. If you want to start studying in PGY 1, by all means do that. The earlier the better. Do not be that guy. Do not be that girl where you start studying in year 3 or year 5 or whatever the case is for your boards, because it's going to make it that much more stressful for you when you're getting ready to sit for your boards, because there's going to be a lot of things that you need to do in your last year, whether it's landing a job, which city, whatever the case is, that you need to focus on as well. So the earlier you study, the better. I had a lot of very smart colleagues that did extremely well during residency, but was, for one reason or another, wanted to wait to the very end to study, and that burdened them. And the fact that they did not pass their board exam the first time around. And you can only, in most specialties, you can only take a board exam once a year. So who wants to wait another full year to take the exam again? So study for your boards much earlier, because that is going to help you in the long run. Do not be one of those guys. Do not be one of those girls. I promise you, if you study early, you're gonna do just fine. The number 9 thing on my top 10 is something I discussed in the previous video as well, and that is picking your attending's brain. Whether it's hospitalists, primary care, specialties, whatever it is, pick your attending's brains, especially when it comes to business, because again, residency a lot of times do not teach you the business side of medicine. They just teach you about the academics part. So ask those questions that you need to know, so that you know what you can and can't do when you get out into the real world. I made sure that I did that, because for me personally, I'm a business-minded guy. And so me asking my attendings the questions that I needed, so that I had all the information on the table so that I can make the best decision for myself, was so key. So when you're rounding with your attendings, you're a specialist or whatever the case is, do not be that quiet guy that just sit in the background, doing whatever. Ask the necessary questions now. Do not wait till later. And the number 10 on my top 10, that's last but not least, which is actually very, very important, is become friends with your nurses. Use your nurses to your advantage. When you start residency, one thing that our program director tried to make us do in our first year is they wanted us to shadow a nurse so that you can see that side. Because a lot of times we do not, as physicians, see what the nurses have to go through. And a lot of nurses have been in the field for 10, 15, 20 years. So use them to your advantage so that you can make your experience that much easier. Do not put them on your bad side, because they can make your life a living hell. So when you start residency, make friends, bring treats, bring food, whatever the case is. But make sure you get on the good side of your nurses. Pick their brains as well. See what works for them, so that you can apply that with yourself. So that you can apply it to whatever makes you work. That way, the process for you, the marathon during residency for you, is as smooth as possible. So use the nurses to your advantage. Do not be the guy that is extremely cocky, tells nurses what to do, bad mouths them and all those, because there is a gang of them. They run in packs. And if you shit on them, if you make their life hell, they can do that right back. So use them to your advantage. Be friends with them. Pick their brains as well, because there's a lot of things that physicians we don't know that can be very, very big for you in your process of becoming an attending. So yeah, those are my top 10 things that I felt that you need to make your experience with residency that much more smoother. There's a lot of other things that you can add to it, but those are the top 10 things that come to my head. So if you can apply those things during your experience, I promise you it's going to make things that much easier for you. If you have any other questions, make sure you drop those questions down below in the comment section, and I'll make sure I get to those. But yeah, again, giveaway, specialty, challenges, drop those at the bottom as well. In the next upcoming videos, we're going to pick a lucky 1, 2, 3 subscribers that we're going to give those away. But in the meantime, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Make sure y'all hit that like, subscribe, share, all those good things, and we'll be back. Y'all take care and God bless.